people come in. I'm going to put this live on Facebook too, so we can get maximum benefit to this webinar. All right, welcome everybody. Come on in. Let us know where you are here from, if you want, or whatever you want to tell us about. You know, we should, let's do something different today. Instead of telling us where you're from, let's tell us what genre you write in. That's fun. That'll be something a little bit different. Assuming people are coming. Yep, we got people in here. I see people in here. The chat should be on, so feel free to use that. Okay, we got romantic fantasy. Awesome. Fantasy, fiction picture books. This new bright pink name tag is brand new on Zoom today. I don't know where that came from, if that's a setting that we put in or if that's a setting that Zoom just updated. Have you seen that yet, Hank?
That is fresh for me as well. So I don't know, that might be our life now.
I don't know where that came from, but you know what I noticed when you were practice sharing your screen and both of us were in the side corner, our names were totally covering our faces. So I'm going to have to, you don't see the big pink tag? Oh, that's so interesting. On my screen, there's a huge pink tag on the bottom left corner of both of our names that say who we are. Maybe that's just for us to know who we are.
Helps us out there.
Some days I need that reminder. Okay. All right. Now everyone is seeing it. Okay, good. Phew. All right. Well, welcome everybody. It is 1:01. So we're going to go ahead and get this started. Welcome to our friends on Facebook who are watching. If you have questions, I'll pop over there every once in a while and look to see if there's questions coming in from Facebook. But today I am very pleased to bring you my new friend Hank from Publisher Rocket. I've interviewed Dave numerous times for our audience, and it's been a while though, and now he's expanded his team, so we are always excited to work with additional experts on the team to learn more about categories and keywords today. If you haven't heard me talk about Publisher Rocket before, either I haven't been talking about it as much as I think or something, because it is a tool that I legitimately use every single day as a publisher and indie authors, and we recommend it to all of our indie authors too. It's been an incredible way for us to not only help find keywords and categories that we might not have known about, but to do some analysis of what's happening in the sales area and seeing what's trending, seeing how many books I need to sell with a certain category or keyword to get to that top level and all of those things. So let me read you Hank's bio really quickly. But before I do that, just please remember, y'all know the drill by now, but we have a Q&A box that is for questions only. Please don't put comments or feedback or anything in there, just the questions so that we don't miss the key questions. But if you have a question, please make sure you put that in the Q&A box, not the chat, because the chat goes by quickly and we don't want to miss it. Closed captions are enabled. If you need those, you can just click on the CC button. And yes, there will be a replay recording sent out. We request 24 to 48 hours before you start emailing us, because sometimes it takes a little while to get all the stuff put together, but there will be a replay and it goes fastest up on our YouTube channel. So if you're following youtube.com/write publish sell, you can see the replays as fast as they post. Okay. Lots of historical mystery, adventure, fantasy, contemporary romance, audiobooks, YA fiction, nonfiction. We have the whole gamut in here, which is very exciting. I'm sure we're going to dig into all of this. So Hank, okay, you're going to have to help me. Is it Marcacci? Marcacci. Okay.
Marcacci. Here we go.
Marcacci. I'm a big wharf, so I totally know what it's like to have my name butchered all the time.
I know what you mean. It happens all the time.
So we have Hank Marcacci, who is data engineer turned Amazon best-selling author. Hank writes in the fantasy and sci-fi genres. Good for all you fantasy folks here.
I'm very excited to see that. I can't wait.
On Amazon and KDP as product manager of Publisher Rocket. He's always on the lookout for how authors can better connect with readers who will love their work. And that's really what it's about, isn't it? With keywords and categories, it's really about finding the right readers.
Strongly agreed. I mean, there's so much more to it than finding so many readers. It's about finding the right ones, the ones that resonate with your work. They love it. They leave that great review and they tell their friends. And I mean, this is the way to find people when they're looking for what they want.
Exactly. So I think I expressed my love fully about Publisher Rocket before we got started. So that's all I'm going to say about that. We will have a very a very special, generous offer from Dave at the end of this. So special that it's free. So don't worry, we're not going to be pitching a big sale to you at the end, but hang on till the end. And if you have to leave early, don't worry, the link will be emailed as well, how you can capitalize on this. And just one last thing, make sure that you have gone over to womeninpublishingsummit.com/events to see what else we have coming up in the near future. And now I'm going to be quiet and let's talk about keywords and categories and Publisher Rocket.
Perfect. And I'm going to go ahead and share, and let's just make sure everyone can see real quick.
Yep, I can see your Zoom screen though.
Perfect. I'm gonna make sure, is that visible there? You should see getting your book discovered on Amazon.
It is, but for some reason on my screen, it's not filling up. It's not showing up full screen. It's showing up.
Try that again. Give me just a moment.
It worked in our demo, but now it doesn't want to work.
Give me just 2 seconds and I'm gonna try to get it to work again.
There we go.
All right, is that popping up now?
Yep, there we go.
All right, well, thanks so much, Alexa. We are very excited to be here, and we're going to talk all about how to get your book discovered on Amazon using keywords and categories. And as you mentioned, this doesn't just help you connect with new readers. I mean, you will be able to get more readers. You will be able to increase your reach, be found on Amazon, even if people have never heard of you. But what this really helps out with too is finding the right readers, the people that will love your work and that are looking for authors just like you. So as we get started, a lot of you are probably wondering, why Amazon? Why are we focusing on this market when there are so many other ones out there? And the reason why is that every month over 197 million people around the world come to Amazon. Amazon is a huge market and it's filled with hungry readers. When people come to Amazon, they're ready to shop. They're not leaving until they find a book. And we want to make sure that your book is included in the options that Amazon gives readers. So coming over from Jeff Bezos, Amazon says that they don't make money when they sell things. They make money when they help customers make purchase decisions. And what this means is Amazon is in the business of deciding what books to show people. So if they know that you love fantasy or they know that you love romance, they're going to show you different books that appear based upon you and based upon the terms that you put in search. And we want to make sure that your book is one of the ones that appear to readers so that it resonates strongly with them. They're more likely to click buy and they're more likely to leave it. So again, when you look at Amazon, bear in mind, they have this mindset that they are trying to determine which books to show readers. And we want to influence that and make sure that your book is in the options. So then the reader has a chance to see it, they discover it, and then you can sell them on your product page and tell them it's an incredible book. They can take home, read it, and enjoy it. Now, the real question that we come down to then is, how does Amazon help shoppers find the right book? And that's really what we're trying to answer today, as well as how we can make you the book, or your book the one that they find. Now, this webinar was created by Dave Chesson, and Dave was someone that never thought he'd be a writer. He had dyslexia growing up. It was something that really he didn't see in his future. However, Dave was actually overseas, so he was with the military, and he wanted a way to come back over and support his family and be able to help them out here. And he discovered KDP, and he started writing in KDP. And Dave looked into all the different marketing aspects, all the different ways that he could show off his books and make sure that people see them and were able to read them. And he became a 9-time international bestseller on books on different topics. And Dave took all that information, the ways that he researched, these marketing tips that he formed, these strategies that he found, and he put them together and created a site called Kindlepreneur. And he also created Publisher Rocket, which we will talk about today. But that is the software that goes along with this that really makes the steps so much easier than if you're trying to do this on your own. Kindlepreneur is a site that covers books all the way from the writing and ideation stage, all the way through to actually publishing, getting it out in the Amazon store and doing the marketing, so that making sure that people can find your hard-earned work. So when you go and you spend months writing a book, you want to make sure people can see it and they have the option to go ahead and buy it. Now, what we're talking about today aren't just strategies that come from our heads. These aren't just ideas that we came up with and we're trying out. These are from multiple large publishing companies and New York bestselling authors, coming from both fiction and nonfiction. These are things that are tried and true. So we've done case studies with these. We've experimented with them, and we also heard from the experts. And the number one expert on Amazon, who is Amazon themselves, says to learn from Kindlepreneur on how to optimize your book for more sales. And that's a quote from Amazon where they're saying, go to Kindlepreneur, learn these strategies, learn the ways you can use them so that you can connect better with readers and make sure that you show up on Amazon. Make sure that you are an option for readers to click on and make your book their next book that they read. Now, I'm your host today, so I'm Hank Marcacci. And unlike Dave, I am someone that always wanted to become an author. I can remember when I was 10 or 11 years old, I read my first book off the shelf, and I decided that this was something I wanted to be in my future. However, I always heard it is impossible. I always heard that you couldn't do it, that becoming a bestseller would take you hours and hours and thousands of dollars, and you probably wouldn't be able to support yourself. So I went to college for engineering. I majored in material science and actually went over into data engineering. And from there, I started studying a lot of different ways to market books. I went on and I became a best-selling author on Kindle, top 50 in the entire store in urban fantasy as well. And a lot of you over here are people that are coming in from fantasy, coming in from romance, coming in from science fiction as well. And those are some of the big areas I love to read and write in. So these tips that we're going to teach you today, many of these are ones that I use to actually get into the Amazon store, to get into that best-selling category, to show up towards the top. And we're going to show you how to do that as well. Now, I am a data addict with a passion for machine learning. And what I mean there is I love studying the numbers behind this stuff. We take it, we boil it down into simple rules. So even if you don't like the numbers, we can teach you the strategies that you can use to impact your books and to make them stronger. And the question that I always ask myself is, what makes a best-selling book a best-selling book? If you have two books and they both have great stories behind them, how do you know that book A is going to go on to become a bestseller and book B won't? Because there are key differences. And we're going to talk about today what these differences are and how you can make sure that you include them in your book so that you can become a bestseller. So that your book is the one that gets noticed, discovered, and visualized on Amazon and doesn't get buried under the stacks of other books that are published every single day. So this all took me together and made me the product manager of Publisher Rocket. I've been working with Dave for about 6 or 7 months now on his team. Absolutely love it here. And we're all trying to decide what are the new strategies that we can do to make sure that we can help authors gain the edge on the Amazon store. And that's really the crux of this presentation, is how do we take steps to increase the number of shoppers that discover your book? Because if more people are viewing it, more people are seeing it, and these are your target readers, you're going to have more people that go ahead and click buy and more people that want to go ahead and read it on their Kindle. Now, there are 2 ways that Amazon helps users discover books. One of these is Amazon categories, and the second one is the search bar. And we're going to spend a good amount of time understanding the psychology here and how people discover books in each of these different areas. Now, with Amazon search, the way that they find a book, and you can see it in this GIF right up here, is that they type in their search term. So we're looking at sci-fi military here, and Amazon goes and they return a list of books that come back. And then the reader can go and choose what they want to actually read from that list. Now, that means that if you have the word sci-fi military in your keywords boxes, so if you remember on KDP when you're publishing, there are 7 boxes that you can go ahead and put keywords. If your keyword is there, you will show up somewhere in this search. You might be on page 1, you might be on page 100, but you will be in here somewhere. And today we're really going to talk about how important it is to be on page 1 and how we can help you get there so that more people see it right away when they put their words into the search bar. What's important here too is that 66% of shoppers begin searching for their book through Amazon search. And that number is impressive because that's, 2/3 of people that are looking for their books are typing in some description. They know something specific that they're looking for. And if your book matches that description, we want to make sure it pops up. And we want to make sure it pops up towards the top of the page where they can see it. The second way that Amazon helps with discoverability is through categories. So when you go to a category page, and this is just like the genre, so you go on Amazon, you click on a book, and you can see they have a category listed. You click on that, you can see the top 20 books in that category. So these are all the books that are the best sellers within that category, the ones that have sold the most, and it's the top 20 that rise to the top. Readers love to hang out on these pages. So they go over here and they start looking through all these books because they might say, hey, I love science fiction. But not just like that, I like dystopian science fiction. They click upon that category and they just hang out in there, and they come there week after week and they look for new books that show up, that pop up, that pique their interest. Not only that, but if you are number 1 in a category, you get this beautiful bestseller tag. And this tag shows across the store. And this tells readers that your book has clout, that your book is something that other people are actively reading, actively enjoying it, and it makes it really stand out on the shelf. If you think about somewhere like Barnes & Noble, they have a whole section where they show bestsellers, where they tell people on the very front of the cover that this is a bestseller. People are way more likely to buy a book when it shows that bestseller and way more likely to notice it. So if you can get this tag, it should really help your sales and positively impact it, because psychologically, a reader knows that other people are reading it, and they also know that it is showing up differently on the shelf and it is called out by Amazon. These two things together, keywords and categories, combine to form what we call discoverability. And what discoverability is means that someone that has never seen your book, they have never heard of you. If they go on Amazon, they can actually find you, that you are popping up and Amazon is showing you their book, or they are showing the readers your book. So when you increase your discoverability, you increase the number of eyes that are on your product page, and the number of people that are actually looking at your book. And the first secret we have for you today is that everyone can become a bestseller without spending thousands of dollars on ads or working 18 hours a day. And the first time I heard this, I thought this was crazy. I mean, I really didn't believe that this was something that could happen, that it could occur, but it is possible. Every one of you can do this, and we have steps to show you how to actually accomplish this and to get that beautiful bestseller tag next to your book. And the two ways that we get there is looking at profitable keywords and best-selling categories. First, we're going to look in today and focus upon Amazon keywords. And we're really going to look at the ways of how we discover these, how we find new keywords, and then how we find better ones. So there are good keywords and there are bad keywords. And we're going to look into how to optimize those keywords to get the best results for your book. When we say keywords, the main area that we focus on are these 7 boxes here on Amazon. So you can see these 7 open boxes. When you go and when you publish a book, you can actually put a keyword in here to describe your book. These tell Amazon what your book should rank for on search. So if you go on search and you type in one of these keywords, just like we typed in sci-fi marines a moment ago, it's going to pull up your book to show somewhere in those rankings based upon that keyword. It helps Amazon understand what your book is about, and it helps Amazon understand who to show your book. So make sure when you go through, you want to take careful care to make sure you optimize these, to make sure that these are the best possible ones they can be, because they describe your book and they tell Amazon who they should show it to. And also, I know it says optional up top, but you don't want to leave these blank. These are your chance to show Amazon who you are and who your book is for. So you want to use every chance you can to tell them, hey, this is the type of reader I want to read my book. This is what my book is about, so we can match up with them. So to do a quick recap here, you type in the keyword up top. You see the books that come down at the bottom. These are all in a specific order, or we call it a rank. And then you click on it, and then you can actually buy the book. So again, if you have sci-fi military up here within one of your 7 keywords, you'll see that you type it in, you hit enter, and it gives you the rank, the order in which they show up. And the order here is extremely important. It really drives a lot of user behavior. And the reason why we'll get into in a moment is that the top ones get way more attention. Now, we mentioned that 66% of book shoppers start their shopping by using Amazon search, but 89% of those end in a purchase. And that is so important because readers coming to Amazon are hungry. These are people that want to leave with a new book. They really want to find that next story that they will love. It's a lot like walking into the grocery store. If you're hungry and you walk into the grocery store, chances are you're going to leave with something. You don't want to leave empty-handed. These readers are the same way. They come into Amazon and their goal is to find a book. And we really want to make sure that your book is the one that pops up and is available for them to choose. And there's some data science to do this, and we're going to dig into that now. So the most important part that we see here is that when you search for a book on Amazon, the book that comes in first, so when you search for a keyword and you actually see all your books coming down, the book that is in number 1 gets 27% of the clicks. The book that is in number 2 gets 12, third gets 9, fourth gets 8, and so on. And you can see this is a really quick decline. So if your book is showing up at number 1 on Amazon, you are getting 27% of the clicks for that keyword. You are getting the most of the attention here. And here's an image that really shows how that plays out. So you can see here, 27% of clicks go to this first book when we search for Space Marines. 12 go here, and 9. And again, it decreases so fast after you get after those top 3. So it's important to know that book 1 gets over 2 times the clicks compared to book 2. So if you're able to show your book in the first position, you get the lion's shares of those clicks. You get the vast majority of those. So we want to help you out to see how you can show your book and rank it for search terms up at number 1. It's so much more important to show up at number 1 than to show up on page 2 for something that's widely searched. And the reason why is that people rarely switch pages on Amazon. It's very rare they go to page 2. You want your book showing up at the top, and you want in the area where it's easy to see. Shoppers really like things that are easy to click on, that pop and show them right in the face. And that's what that number 1 position is like. And to illustrate this, we're going to compare book 1 with book number 5. So if you're book number 5 and you're showing up on number 5 down here on Amazon search, you're getting 7% of the clicks. So if there are 1,000 searches per month, you get 70 of those clicks every month. However, if you're book 1, ranking at number 1 for the same amount of searches, you get 270 clicks per month. So that is 200 extra clicks every single month that you get just by having that keyword that ranks you in number 1. Now, you might say 200 clicks sounds like a lot, but I might be able to accomplish that through ads, or there's other ways I might be able to do it. And you'd be right, except with keywords, you don't just get one keyword, you get 7. So here, when we look at keywords, if your first keyword gets you 270 clicks a month, your second keyword gets you 122, your third one gets you 87, your fourth one gets you 112, your fifth one gets you 66, your sixth one gets you 211, and your seventh one gets you 167. All of these combine and they float users back to your book, and they all funnel back to one position on Amazon. So you can imagine these as different funnels across the Amazon store, different search terms that come in, and they all drive users back to your book. So it's so important because it's not just 200 clicks a month. It's all of these together. Every one of these combined is what your keywords are doing to increase your rankings and increase your sales with your book. What's important here too is if you look at keyword 5 and 3, you'll notice that these are a bit lower than the others. Number 5 only has 66 clicks per month. Number 3 has 87. So you can imagine if you change number 5 from 66 to 266, and if you change number 3 up to 250 clicks, how that immediately adds 400 to 500 clicks for your book, because they all funnel back and they all drive users back to the same place. Now, to understand how we actually create keywords, how we create good keywords, we first have to understand what they are. And keywords are the words that your target shopper uses to find the book they want. Keywords are the words that your target shopper uses to find the book that they want. And there are 2 types of keywords that we're going to dive into, and how we can generate and come up with great ideas for these keywords to make sure that we are attaining new shoppers. The first one is fiction, and the second one is nonfiction. With fiction, keywords describe the type of story that the book is about. And there are 5 ways that we typically see shoppers looking for these. And these are settings and time periods, character types and roles, the plot theme, events and situations, and the story tone. So as we go through these, I want you to think about one of the books that you've created. I want you to look at how you could apply these different types of sections to your book. So for example, we have some example books here on the right, and we're going to look how we can take a look at those books and come up with keywords that potentially fit into these buckets, because these are what people look for on Amazon. When they're trying to find their new book, chances are they're going in, they're typing in one of these categories. So with settings and time periods, if you look on the right here, immediately we see a book called The British Knight. Right away, you should know that setting is likely somewhere in England or likely somewhere in Britain. If you look to the book to the right, you can see based upon her clothing that it's old-timey. It's someone that maybe is in colonial America or back a couple hundred years back. Over here, we have one that's medieval. And then even before that, there's another medieval one that almost looks fantastical. So we can see from the setting here that there are different types of time periods or different types of places that these actually took place. Another example is that if you have a specific region that your book took place, I know a lot of you mentioned that you write historical fantasy. Well, then you want to include where your book actually took place, because there are people that will search out different regions and read a book just because they're about it. I mean, if someone writes a historical romance that is in England or Scotland or America, there are people that'll read those ones simply because it's an area that they enjoy or a time period that they enjoy. Second, we have character types and roles. So when we look at this, there's a lot of variety here because people will search out certain types of characters and they will read a book simply because that character is in it. For example, we have the Billionaire Boys Club. We immediately know that is some sort of romance fantasy about someone that is rich. And there are people that will go through these books and read almost every type of book that is about that type of character. We can see a character here that's more religious based, or potentially someone that's Amish or Mennonite based here as well. And there are people that will read those stories that are about that specific sect. On the far right, we can see someone that is more of a family man. We can tell that that's a romance about someone that wants something wholesome, maybe something cleaner, and then immediately tells you what type of character they'll be in. Compared to the one in the middle here, where we can tell it's a little more spicy, or there's a giant person on the cover, and we know that certain type of readers like to read those stories as well. For number 3, we have our plot theme. When you look at the plot theme, think about what people are trying to get out of the book from that plot perspective. So for example, with the summer house, you have a vacation romance. You can tell that someone's looking at something that's a getaway. They're looking to read these books that are easygoing. They might be going to the beach and looking for their next read, and this is something that would fit in there. You also have the wedding date. Someone might really like reading books that are about weddings. So you want to include that in your book if that's something you think people are going to look in and actually try to read. So remember, when you have your keywords, if you have something like the wedding date, you want to use keywords about weddings because that tells people the plot theme that you're getting into. You also have something here that looks more like a love triangle. So you want to include that as well. For events and situations, looking at the bottom here, we see wives of war. We can immediately tell that there is a war in this book. It looks like World War I, something that is popping out, and there are readers that will go through and read those books simply because they're about that aspect. We also have situations like the one on the far right here called Stalker. This is an example of a situation that a character is put into and something that we know that she's going to have to work her way through, and people will go and pick up these books simply because they're about that type of situation. And last, we have story tone. There are different types of stories, even though these are very similar, that are going to have different feelings to them. So for example, like here, you could have something that's a more melancholy book, something that's maybe a little sadder, or something that's going to have that type of tone that isn't as upbeat. You could also have a book that's really happy, or a book here that might be more of a spicier romance, or ones that are more wholesome as well. So these are all things that you want to use to generate your keywords. So for example, when you're looking at settings and time periods, and this is just starting from the top, you want to call out where your book takes place and when. If you write a futuristic book, let them know it's in the future. If it's off-world, you tell them that. If it's medieval Europe, you let them know there in the keywords as well. For character types and roles, if you have that archetype, if you have that specific character, call it out so that people that love that type of character know they can find it in your book because they will pick it up because those are people that just read about that specific type of character. Plot themes, if you have one of those common themes, like for example, a love triangle for the vacation or the wedding, make sure they see that too. Events and situations, if it's something historical, let them know because there are people, for example, that will read books all about World War II. If your book has World War II in it, you want to tell people so that fans of that specific situation will go in and actually check your book out. And then the last one again with story tone, let people know the feel of your book. So personally, I know I hate books with sad endings. So I will particularly look for books that are more comedic or books that are more lighthearted. So I will look for those in my Amazon search. And if that's something that you have in your search, your book will likely rank higher and I will see that and it will match stronger with what I'm looking for. Now, those were fiction keywords. Nonfiction keywords are all about a shopper, how they look. Sorry, nonfiction keywords, one moment. Sorry, my Zoom is covering this up. There we go. Nonfiction keywords are how a shopper describes a pain point and the result that they want by reading the book. So if you're someone that's going through a nonfiction book is going to tell you all about the problem and the solution. So when we look here at different pain points, for example, the first one, OMG, my kid is overweight. That is a problem. That is something that a parent is saying, I have an issue, I have something I need to solve. And when they see that book, they know that their issue is going to be in that book, as well as the ways in later chapters how to resolve it. Another example is how to read body language. You can see here that the person has their hands up in the air. They're saying, I don't know how to read body language. It is calling out that this is an issue that they're looking to resolve. The last one's kind of an extreme example, but how to not die alone. This is something that really drives home that pain point, that problem that people are facing, whether it's loneliness or an inability to make friends, whatever it is. And they tell people that this book is for you because you are experiencing this pain point. With the results and solution, we look on the opposite side of that coin. So we don't look at the pain point. We don't look at the area that hurts. We look at the area that is beneficial. So for example, instant weight loss. We look now about the benefit, about having that goal line at the end of not having weight. We have profit first or I'll teach you to be rich. Both of these focus upon riches or making money or how to actually increase your earnings. So these are ones, again, that show the goal. They show the solution, what you actually want to get to, and they lure people in that way. And then you have how to win friends and influence people. When you read that title, you know exactly what that book is about. You know exactly what you should be getting out of it. So again, when you go in with your keywords here, think about the problems that people would have, as well as the ways that they might solve it. With emotional amplifiers, you start looking into ways to really hook readers. So for example, speed reading, how to read a book in 1 hour. So if this is in your keywords or in your title, you can see immediately that it's not just about speed reading. It's about how to do it in 1 hour, which just has that wow factor. It's that zing at the end that really drives someone in. Or not just how to write, but how to write fast. And we can see the emphasis there that is available. So when you go in and you create these keywords, these triggers or these emotional amplifiers can make a big difference to people because they're going to tell them that your book is different and is stronger than other ones in that genre. Another example here is like this big 13. People will focus upon numbers that aren't even or that are a little odd, and they'll draw their attention more. Think about how much more you would look at something like 13 in passing compared to just a round number like 10. 13 stands out because it's odd. It's not something you normally see. 10, I bet there's tons of books with that in the title. So when you go and you look at these as well, you want your book to pop. You want it to have that trigger, that emotional amplifier, that thing that tells readers, hey, this isn't like the other ones you've seen. And then the last one that we have that is the most important is demographics. When we look at demographics, this is all about how you tell a reader that the book is specifically for them. And my favorite example here is Evernote for lawyers. So Evernote is a note-taking program where you can go in and there's tons of stuff you can do there, but you can use it professionally. You can use it to stay organized. You can plan stuff out in it. But the point is that if you go and you write a book about Evernote and you put it on a shelf and it's just a generic book, well, there's probably 100 other books on Evernote that are right next to it. And the question is, how does a reader then go and say, okay, I want your book for Evernote compared to the hundreds of others that are on that shelf? Well, when you do something like say Evernote for lawyers, when you go ahead and you clarify and say, okay, it's not just Evernote, but it's Evernote for this specific niche, all of a sudden for the people that are in that niche, that book stands out for them and it's telling them that that book is for them. So if you're a lawyer and you walk into the bookstore and you see Evernote for lawyers and you just see Evernote, you are so much more likely to buy Evernote for lawyers because it's for you, created for you, and it describes the problems that you're going to have. You know that whoever made that book has your exact examples in there, that this is built in a way that you can immediately use, as opposed to just something generic that might apply to everyone. Another great example here is the Busy Mom's Cookbook. When you look at the Busy Mom's Cookbook and you're a busy mom, you know that there's not going to be a recipe in there that takes 5 hours to make. There's not going to be something with exotic ingredients or something that costs $300 from the grocery store. You know that your kids will likely like it. So when you put all this together, you understand that this book is meant for you. It's created for you, and it's something that you can actually purchase, buy, and it will help your life. So the goal here again is that you tell people that this book speaks directly to you. This is created for your demographic, created for your lifestyle. Now, the second secret that we have for you today is not all keywords are created equal. There are some that are better and some that are worse than others. And we're really going to dive into this. So to understand what makes one good or bad, we have to ask, what are the qualifications? What are the measurables that we can go in and say, okay, this is a good keyword and this is a bad one. And there are 3 steps to determine these. The first one is you want words that shoppers really use. So if you think about your book, you want to make sure you include words that people are actually typing into Amazon. Even if you find a keyword that perfectly matches your book, it's better than anything else out there. If no one searches for it, it's not doing you a lot of good because people can't discover your book if they're not looking for that particular avenue. Second is we want words that shoppers use to buy. So if 1,000 people are looking for a specific keyword every month, but no one actually uses that keyword to buy books, well, you're in trouble because that means that people are likely searching for something else, or maybe they're looking for a free version or something else along those lines. So you have to make sure that these words are something that people are actually clicking buy on. There's not just a lot of traffic, but there are dollars flowing in as well. And then the third is we have to look for books that aren't too competitive. If you try to rank for a keyword and a huge author has it, you're going to have a very hard time showing up for that keyword. We want to find those keywords where you can show up in first or second place on Amazon. Remember, 27% of the clicks go to the person in that first place. So how can we make sure that your keywords are ones where you can rank high, where you can show up and you're not buried under 50 other books on the store? So the first way that we do this, or the first way that we determine our suggestions here, is we make sure we find words that shoppers really use to search. An example here is you go into Amazon and you start typing in the word in the search bar. So remember, you came up with all these words through what we just described a moment ago, all those different ways to generate fiction and nonfiction. You take those words and you start putting them in here. And Amazon will show you results that have been typed in thousands of times before. So when you look at all these, the reason why these are auto-completed is because people have searched for these. They're actively looking for this, and Amazon's trying to guess what you're looking for. These are other great examples that then you can use as keywords because you know people are actively searching for it. Now, what's interesting here as well is if you type in, for example, Space Marine, and then you'll see right here where we add the S, we just make it plural, all of these words change. And you'll see right there, they all changed up. So when you go and you enter in your keywords, you want to do a lot of different variations. You want to say, okay, if I type in fantasy dragon, what's it get me? If I type in fantasy dragons, what does it get me? What about fantasy with dragons? And you can see all these different variations that Amazon will give you because they're saying people that were looking for something similar, type this in, and these are the ones that people actually use to search. So you want to take these, you want to write them down because we're going to do step 2 on them next. Step 2 is we check and make sure people actually buy with these keywords. So you go type in a keyword and you click on the book that ranks number 1 for that keyword. And then you scroll down and you can find the Amazon bestseller rank number. Now with this number, you can take it and you can enter it into the Kindle bestseller calculator, and this will tell you how many people are actually buying that book every day. So what this number is, this Amazon bestseller rank number, is it shows you the amount of books that someone buys on Amazon. If someone's ranking number 1 for this number, we know that they sell more books than anyone else on Amazon. And the higher that number gets, the less books they sell because they're trailing behind other books on the Amazon store. They're increasing their rank there where they're actually saying, okay, they sell less books. They're now showing up at number 100,000 or lower and lower and lower as you continue on. But the point is that you can take this number. If you put it in the Kindle bestselling calculator, it will tell you how many books per day are sold for there. You then take that number and you can find out how much people earn off of it because you just multiply it by the price as well as a royalties ratio, and you can see how much people are making per day off of that keyword. Next is that we have to find keywords that aren't too competitive. And these are some great ways to determine how competitive a keyword is. So for example, when you look at the author, if they're famous and they already own that keyword, it's going to be so much harder to rank there because this is someone that already has a big name book out there. They already own that keyword, and it's going to be very difficult for them to show up there. The next areas that you want to look at when you're trying to rank for a keyword is what the top books in there look like. If there is a beautiful cover that's showing on the book, if there are 5,000 5-star reviews, or if the book description is just professionally written with a great hook and you want to read it yourself, chances are that means that it's going to be very hard to be competitive for that keyword. It's going to be very hard for you to rank. So if these things are showing up in here, you may not want to use that keyword. You likely want to use something else because you won't show up near the top, you'll show up near the bottom. And remember how few clicks actually make it all the way to the bottom. Other examples here are age. If a book is brand new, Amazon tends to promote it a little more. So be careful about using something that's brand new. And then if the keyword's in the title as well, it's harder to fight that because someone has a keyword in their title, it's going to pop that right towards the top when someone searches for it. And then the last thing you should look at is how the author actually works online. So if the author has a blog or other online assets, if they're really knowledgeable or they have lots of promotions, these are all signs saying that this person is very marketing savvy. That means that they likely know what they do or what they're doing, and it's going to be so much harder for you to rank for that keyword because they're putting a lot of effort into keeping it. Now, once you have these, so you've gone through and you go on Amazon, you collect all those keywords that are showing up in the autocorrect field or the autocomplete field. You take those and you see how much each of those are earning every day. And then you take your favorite in those and you actually see how competitive they are. You should build that spreadsheet and you repeat that over and over and over again until you fill those 7 boxes. Because remember, you want the best possible keywords for each of those boxes to maximize your clicks. And this could take you a long time. When you're going through and you're searching all the different areas, when you're pulling all the keywords, this can take you hours to really do it right. Or what you can do is use the easy button to get this done in minutes rather than hours. And that easy button is Publisher Rocket. So Publisher Rocket has the ability for you to do a keyword search where you can actually do all this right away. It's instant and you can see all this information without searching for it on Amazon yourself. So if we click on that keyword search and we enter a keyword like fantasy, we can see that they're showing all those different autocompletes you can see there. So all that time you would have done to spend and put in all those different variations of keywords and write down all the different autocompletes on Amazon, Publisher Rocket does it for you, and it puts it right here. Not only that, but Publisher Rocket will tell you how many people search for that keyword per month. So on Amazon, all you can see is which keywords are popular or not. On Publisher Rocket, you can see exactly how many people are looking for that. The second thing it does is then it goes and it calculates how much that keyword is worth. So you can see right here, you can immediately tell that there's some keywords that bring in a lot more money than others. And there's a wide gap between the biggest keywords and the smallest in telling how much each one can actually attain. And then the third thing that we do is you have a competitive score in Publisher Rocket. Now, this one is incredibly important because you can see keywords that have a lot of searches and a lot of earnings. But the problem is that if you aren't ranking towards the top, then you're not getting any portion of those. So the competitive score shows you how hard it is to rank for the top of that keyword. If you have 100 in a competitive score, that keyword is almost impossible to rank for. If you have a 1 in the competitive score, it's super easy and you can definitely rank for it right away. So the importance here is this is a scale, goes all the way from 1 to 100, and you have to look at that and determine how hard that keyword is. In newer versions of Rocket, this is actually color coded. So you can get a red, a green, or a yellow signal. And green means it's really easy and you should likely go for it, whereas red means it's pretty hard. You probably want to avoid that keyword. Now we're going to jump into an example here to show you this in action and show you what Publisher Rocket can actually tell you about these keywords. So if you wrote a book on parenting, you're looking at all these different keywords that you can use for your book. And these are the ones that you've written down that you've decided are probably good keywords that you want to use and put into your boxes. And we're going to look at how certain ones of these are stronger and certain ones are not. Now you'll notice how to parent teenage boys or how to parent teen boys and parenting teenage boys are very similar words. To us, they likely mean the exact same thing. However, Amazon doesn't view it that way. To Amazon, these are totally different queries that are going in system, and they're going to show you different books. And what's important here is parenting teenage boys makes $337 a month with 240 searches, whereas how to parent teenage boys or how to parent teen boys only brings in $38 a month with less than 100 searches. So you can immediately see that these words, even though they're just slightly different, can have huge different impacts about how many people are searching for your book. And remember, when people search for it, they then click on the ones that are in the rankings, and then they go on and buy those. Another example here is parent ADHD. If your book had ADHD in it and you're using this as a keyword, you can see that this is earning around the same as parenting teenage boys. However, we can also go in and see that it's less competitive. So that means that there are different keyword combinations that might earn the same amount of money, but be far less competitive and mean that you can get a far greater amount of that money because you're basically taking more of the pie, and you can get way more clicks that are coming through because you're ranking higher. So when you go look for keywords, you want to make sure you take competition into account, because then you can see how high you can rank up on there. And remember, when you show up towards the top of the Amazon page, you get all those extra clicks that people in positions 5, 6, and 7 really don't see. Now, this is another example here, and we're going to talk about why it's so important not to use keywords like science fiction or romance or just fantasy. And the reason why here is if you start off with a keyword like science fiction, you have 137,000 other competitors in the Amazon store. Every one of these is an excited author that wants their book to sell, and they're all working so that their book will sell for the word science fiction. You can look at the competitive score here and you can see it's a 70. That's really high, and it's going to make it really hard for you to actually rank there. Now, what you could do is you go take a look at your book, and your book is likely more niche in one way or another. And for example, this author here, for what we're using this keyword for, wrote a book about space marine bug hunts. So this is a type of genre. It's a really small genre, but about space marine bug hunts that people religiously read. Like they'll go through and they'll read everything in that genre. Now, if you go ahead and you start getting more niche with your keyword, so you go from science fiction down to sci-fi military, you can see immediately we go from 137,000 competitors over to 17,000. So you can see how that just cuts the amount of people that are competing for that keyword by a factor of 10 almost. So if you just make it a little more niche, there are far less competitors there. Then if we go to something like Space Marines, we're getting more niche, and you go from 17,000 to 3,000. So again, you have a huge cut there, and you can see on the right, the competition score goes from 70 to 62 to 48. It's really moving down. And then when you go something more niche like Space Marine Bug Hunt, you have 8 competitors on the Amazon store and a 27 on the competition score. I want you to think about how much easier it is to rank for 8 or to compete with 8 different people compared to 137,000 people. So if you're trying to compete for 8, there's a far better chance that you're going to show up at the top because you don't have to beat out that many people to show there. And that means that with this, the earnings that you're getting here, you're likely getting them all, or you're getting the top amount in those earnings because you're showing up towards the top. You're the one that people are actually clicking on. If you use something like science fiction, the problem is that you're going to be on page 10 of Amazon. And that's if you're lucky, because there are so many books that are coming out in science fiction. So even though this number is huge, even though you see 84,000 here, you'd be lucky to get a single dollar of that money because for that keyword, you're ranking low. If you go niche, you beat out the other people that are actually competing with you, then you can earn the full amount here. And that's the power here, is you can actually have all these different niche ones pointing back to your book, boosting your rankings and increasing your sales there. Now, here's another example of how some of this psychology works. So if you go and type in a word like romance, well, then typically what you'll do is if that's not exactly what you're looking for, so if you type in romance and you look and you say, okay, none of these books are what I want, you'll start adding additional words. So you go from romance to romance and sex. And this is from the user that is looking for a book. They will just add on those two words at the end. And we can see from our perspective here, that makes the competition score go down, and you still have a good amount of searches, and there's a lot less competitors that show up in there as well. Well, what's interesting is you see really weird phenomenons that occur here. And an example is if you're looking for second chance romance. So if someone goes types in second chance romance, that means that they're thinking about after a divorce or after something's gone wrong, they're looking for a new partner in their lives. Now, a lot of these people have babies. So they'll go and look through all these searches and they'll say, oh no, I really want a second chance romance when I have a baby. So I want it with someone that's accepting that I have a baby, or they're willing to come into our new family. And they'll type in second chance romance with baby. Now, this is a really strange keyword. And we know that they're not trying to search for what the connotation is here. We know all they're doing is appending on that additional word. But what's interesting is that if you look on Amazon, the amount of sales for second chance romance with baby is 23,000 compared to second chance romance is only 400. And not just that, but it's easier on the competition score and it gets more searches per month. So even though this is a really weird phrase that you likely wouldn't think about, something like Publisher Rocket shows you, hey, if you append on these extra words, you can get all these more searches. You can earn way more for your books and do it easier, because these are what people are searching for that you would never think of, because it's a really weird combination. Another example here, down here on the bottom, is how we can just change a little bit, these little tweaks, and we can get very strong differences. So if you type in billionaire romance, you can see that there are 40,000 competitors for that. But if you change one letter, the B to an M, all of a sudden we go from 40,000 competitors down to 7,000 competitors. So we cut the amount of competitors so strongly just by changing from billionaire to millionaire. Now these words mean roughly the same thing, but far more people are looking for billionaire and far more people are publishing within billionaire. So if you go to millionaire, where it's more niche and there's less people that are actually publishing in there, you can still get a strong amount of traffic because people are still looking for the same concept, but at the same time, your competition drops from an 80 to a 55. So there's a huge benefit there on looking at these fringe cases or words that you can just barely change these keywords, but still get a lot of sales and still reduce your competition score and get a good amount of searches per month. Another example here is alpha male romance. If you take alpha male romance and you add the word possessive just in front of it, all of a sudden you drop from an 80 in competition score down to a 70. So you can really impact the amount of competition out there by playing with the different combinations here. And the benefit, again, is that Publisher Rocket will tell you these different combinations that you can potentially enter so that you can see different competition scores and you can see which ones perform better than others. Now, if we go through and do it manually, so if we do that example that I showed you where we follow steps 1, 2, and 3, you can pull up all these different keywords and then you can see the amount of earnings for them. But what you don't know is you don't know how many people are actually searching it per month, and you don't know how competitive it is. And the problem here is that it's really easy to make mistakes. So if you go find all these keywords manually, you don't have that information that can tell you I might be going into a keyword that's extremely competitive, even though it looks good on paper. So for example here, if we look at the word pandemic, this word looks like it earns you $10,000 per month. However, if you go use Publisher Rocket, you can see that this is 100 on the competition score. It is the hardest keyword out of any of the ones here, and it's definitely not one that you want on your book because it is so competitive and so hard to get. So when you use Publisher Rocket, you can see all of these things together. You can see the amount of searches per month, the competition score, and the earnings, so that you don't make mistakes like going in and typing in pandemic and then seeing that you're really not earning any of that money that's occurring there. In addition, Amazon sometimes recommends words that maybe were typed in a lot in the past, but they aren't so much anymore. So these are all examples here where you can see there's less than 100 searches for these. So if you use one of these words, there's almost no one searching for these. No one's going in and actually typing these in, which means that you don't want to include those. You want to include the ones that have over 100. So when you optimize for all that, you find the ones for your book, you get the ones with low competition score, good earnings, and high searches per month. And that's what Publisher Rocket can help you do, is they can help you find out which keywords are optimized to drive those clicks, to drive those sales, and not to get caught in the trap where a keyword looks appetizing, but really it isn't. So to recap here, there are 3 ways to get your keywords. The first is you can guess. And the problem here is you really don't know what you're going to get. Think back to our example about parenting teen or teenage boys versus parenting teen boys, or parenting teenage boys versus how to parent teen boys. You really didn't know which one of those was earning money. They both sound pretty similar. So if you're guessing, you're just leaving it up to the wind, and you might win, you might not, but chances are it's going to be very difficult to win there. So a lot of other authors are out there competing for these keywords. Second is you can do this manual. So if you go pull all the manual ones and you go and look at all the different ways that you can combine them, you're going to be a lot more educated here. The problem with this is it's going to take you hours and you really need more information. So you don't have all the information at your fingertips. And then the third way you can do this is you can use Publisher Rocket. And with Publisher Rocket, you get all that information. You can find your strong gig keywords, and you can actually make sure that these aren't ones that are going to get you caught in a trap, like the word pandemic. So Publisher Rocket gives you all the information so that you can go ahead and sell more copies of your book. Now, the second thing we're looking at today, so that was keywords. We covered all about keywords, how to make it profitable, and how to actually earn off them and find good ones. But now we're also going to look at book category data science. And this is the second part of discoverability. So remember, we had search, and now we're looking at categories because that's a way that we can continue to sell our showstoppers your book. Now, as a recap, with categories, it shows the top 20 books in that category. There are thousands of people that just go and hang out in these pages and look for their next book that they're going to read. And they're just browsing through and trying to find what they'll enjoy. And if you're number one, remember, you get this beautiful bestseller tag here. And our secret that we have for you today, our third and final secret, is if you want to become a bestseller, don't let Amazon choose your categories. You have to choose your categories. And here's why. If you go into Amazon and you go into KDP and you publish, you'll notice that they give you a bunch of options here for different categories. But the problem is that you're only allowed to choose 2 of these. They don't let you enter in more than 2 here. And not just that, but these are old categories inherited from a system that used to be around before Amazon. So this is inherited from the old publishing system and what they used to use. And the reason why they had the categories this way is that an old publisher would go and they create a book and then they'd send it off to different bookstores. And these stores had to know where to put it on their shelves. So the publisher would go and they would say, hey, these are 2 categories that this book pertains to. The person at the store would go read it and say, oh, okay, this is romance and sci-fi, and they could go put it on those 2 shelves. And that way they don't have to read the entire book. And when you go to different stores, these books aren't showing up all over the place. It helps keep them consistent. Now, Amazon inherited this and used it for their category system. But over the years, Amazon has gone through and added a bunch more categories. So we have 4,700 of these BISACs, which is the old system, what we used to use, what Amazon inherited. Well, now we have 11,200 extra Amazon categories that have been added on top of these. And what that means is that there's over 6,500 categories that are not being used, unless you know about this. Because remember, these are not an option to put in when you publish on KDP. When you actually click publish, these aren't listed there. The only ones that are listed are the old ones. So these are categories that are not being used, that are available, and they're extremely low competition because most people don't know they're actually there or how to add their book to it. So the question you should be asking on this is, how do you find the best categories and how do you add those categories to your book? And what's important, the reason why we focus on this so much is to become an Amazon bestseller. All you have to do is sell more books in one day than any other book in that category. So if you have a category that's very competitive, it's very difficult to become a bestseller. But if you have a category that's small and it's niche and it's one of those ones that's not part of the old system, well, it's so much easier to become a bestseller and get that beautiful tag next to your book that tells everyone that they should go out and read it. And here's an example. So in one category, it might only take 3 books to become a bestseller. In the second category, it might take 247 books to become a bestseller. So if you want a bestseller tag, you're going to want to put your book in a category where it only takes 3, because then it's so much easier to rise to the top and to become more visible. Now, what's important here is you make sure that your book is only going in, or you have to make sure that your book is only added to categories where it's applicable. You want to make sure that these categories describe your book, because then you get readers that leave you positive reviews and you don't get in trouble with Amazon. So you may want to make sure that whatever categories that you find describe your book belongs in there. And that way that you're increasing your readership, you're making sure that your readers are happy, and you're also rising to the top of the charts because they're more niche. And here's an example that we'll go through, or how to find these categories. So there are 3 steps. The first is you look at the categories of other books like your own. The second is you look for the ABSR, the #1 best-selling book there. And the third is you continually repeat that until you have categories that you like. So when we go through, we actually click on the categories down here. So we'll go find a book like our own. And we'll scroll down and we'll find these categories down here. And these are what a book similar to your own has been placed in. So we click on them. We find the top #1 book that's selling in that category. And then we go and we find its ABSR. We put the ABSR into the Kindle bestselling calculator, and then we can see how many books they're selling per day. So we know how many books then it takes sold to reach #1 in that category. So from there, you can go ahead and create a list, and you can show all the different categories you have, as well as these sales it takes to get to #1. Now, what's important here is you can immediately tell that there's two different types of categories. There are ones that are really hard. It takes 237 books sold here. It takes 386 books sold here. So those are very difficult. And then there's ones that are really easy. It only takes 13 here or 15 here. Now, if you look, these categories are about very similar things. So for example, language instruction miscellaneous, it only takes 13 books to show up as #1. But foreign language study and reference, well, that takes 386 books to reach #1. Chances are, if you wrote a book about foreign language, it can likely fit into both of these. So what you want to do is you really want to make sure that you show up in this category where it only takes 13 books to become a bestseller, because then you float to the top of that category and you get that bestseller tag. Now, here's an example of what this would look like when you are finished. You have your 10 different categories that you put together, and you can see that he's collected all these different ones here that have a low amount of sales to reach bestseller, because these are the ones that you're going to be visible in. Now, what you can do with Publisher Rocket is, instead of hunting and pecking and looking around in those different areas, you can do this all on the click of a mouse, and you can find these categories extremely easily. So what you do is you come into Publisher Rocket, and these are the parent level categories. So these are the ones at Amazon that each have maybe 100 different categories underneath it, or 10 or a dozen, depending upon their size. You can come in and you can click on Check It Out in Publisher Rocket, and it's going to show you all the different categories that fit within it. So for example, science fiction and fantasy here, these are all different categories that fit within this parent level category. And you can see all the different sales it takes to get to #1. So an example here is, let's say you wrote a book about King Arthur, and it's all about him coming of age. So right here, we see fantasy Arthurian and fantasy coming of age. Well, for fantasy Arthurian, it only takes 56 books to reach #1, whereas fantasy coming of age, it takes 557. So you can imagine, as you're going through your categories, you want to choose the one that's at 56, because it's so much easier to reach the top of that and show up as a bestseller. Another example of what you can do in Publisher Rocket is you can actually search for the categories. So if you type in a keyword here, it's going to give you all these different categories that your keyword applies to. So then you can go and you can choose which ones are actually good from here, and it gives you all the different ones that show. What's important here is that these might be located in very different parts of the store. They might have completely different parent categories. So you can take these and you can go ahead and cherry pick which ones you want. And you have to be careful here, because, for example, I typed in the word marine. Well, I'm getting submarines back, and I'm getting marine life. Whereas if my book is about space marines, I only want to choose the ones here that fit within that space marines category. I don't want to go after things like fish. I want to go after things that are applicable to my science fiction. Now, once you have all those categories together, it's really easy to put on Amazon. The hard part is getting them, which again, Rocket makes easy. But once you have those, you just go to author.amazon.com/en_/contact. And this will let you put all your different categories in here in a form that is already pre-filled out for you for your book. And Amazon will go ahead and add those to your book if they're accepted. You can also remove categories from your book here as well. So if there's a category that you don't want your book showing up in that currently is showing up, you can do this to remove it. Now, to review, there are 3 different ways to get your categories. The first is BISACs. These are the old system. This is where every author gets put into, and it's so competitive. It takes hundreds and hundreds of sales to become a bestseller in these. So you really don't want to show up in the BISACs. You can have a couple on your book, but you want to make sure you go after your niche ones more. Second is that you can do this manually. You can go and hunt and peck across the store. The problem here is that the most niche categories, the ones that you can become a bestseller in, are really hard to find. So you might find some of them, but you're probably not going to find all the ones for your book. You're going to spend hours doing it. And the third way is Publisher Rocket. So Publisher Rocket shows them all in one spot and lets you actually put that keyword in to see it. Now, this is the recap of categories. And remember, keywords plus categories makes discoverability. That makes your book be found on Amazon, which can increase your sales. Now, at this point, I bet you're wondering, how can I get my hands on Publisher Rocket? And what we're doing today is we're offering our Publisher Rocket for $97 to include unlimited access. This means that it's not a subscription. It is a one-time payment of $97 to get everything. There's no up payments, nothing else like that. It's just one. And what this lets you do is you can go ahead and find profitable keywords, just like I showed you fast for your own book. You can go find all those different categories and which ones you can become a bestseller in, so you can get that bestseller tag on your book as well. We didn't show it to you today, but you can go in for Amazon ads keywords and generate lists of hundreds of keywords that you can go ahead and put in your CPCs. And that can help you have more effective Amazon ads to drive your book to the top of the store. One of my favorite things is you can see how much money other authors are making. I like to snoop around on here to set my own goals, my own benchmarks, but also to see what's working. If I go look up another author, I can see if what they're publishing is actually selling on Amazon, or maybe if it isn't. And I can decide whether or not I want to go into a certain genre based upon how people are doing there. And then you can also discover hot and emerging book markets. So if you write things like romance, this is so important because it's so trendy. And if you can catch a trend early, you can do so much better than if you come in at the end of a trend. Now, the important thing about Publisher Rocket as well is for $97, you get that unlimited access. And here's why that matters. If Rocket helps you sell 48 more books in your entire author life, so if you buy Rocket today and you sell 48 more books in the next 5 to 10 years that you're an author, it pays for itself. And every book copy sold after that is a return on your investment that is in the positive. So Rocket should pay for itself, and you only have to sell 48 more books throughout your entire author career. So if you're an author for 4 years, that's only one extra book per month before Rocket pays for itself. The second thing here is if Rocket helps you save 5 hours of time in your entire author life and you value your time at $20 an hour, well, all of a sudden you're also coming ahead. Just remember, without Rocket, you really should be still researching these keywords and categories, but it's going to take you hours. And if you have multiple books, it's probably going to take you a lot longer than 5 hours. So if you save 5 hours of time there in your entire author life, you come out ahead with Rocket as well, and it pays for itself. Now, we do have more today, and this is a special bonus that Alexa mentioned at the beginning. Now, we showed you the theory today. We went through a couple examples with Publisher Rocket, but just for this week, we're offering Publisher Rocket, or with purchase of Publisher Rocket, we're offering this course for free. And this course is a keywords and categories course by Dave Chesson, and it is fantastic. This course covers a ton of different examples that you can use to actually apply to your book. So Dave's going to take you through Rocket. And he's going to show you, okay, here's an example if we use the keyword dragons, or here's an example for romance, or here's an example for all these different books. And he's going to show you these strategies that you can use with Rocket to really use it effective. Now, again, this is available for free if you purchase Rocket, but you have to use this link. So Alexa, if you can go ahead and drop this link in the chat, make sure you use this one, because then you get this course for free with Rocket purchase. Now,
did anybody purchase already earlier when I was dropping the link? Because if you clicked on the link but didn't purchase, make sure you use the link that I just dropped up here. I updated the pretty link, but before it just had the regular affiliate link on it. So that only applies that if you purchased today. What happens if they've purchased already?
If they've already owned Rocket, we're happy to give out a copy of this course because you all joined us today for this webinar, and we're so happy to have you here. So all you have to do is reach out to support on Rocket, tell them Hank sent you, and we'll send you over a free copy of that course. And same thing, Alexa, if they bought through a different link, just have them reach out to us, and we'll make sure that things are squared away.
I updated our pretty link. It had the pretty link had the old one. I didn't realize there was that bonus added on the end of it. So it's updated now. It should go through there. All right. So like he just said, if you already have Publisher Rocket, just reach out to support. Tell them Hank sent you, that you were at this webinar, and that to give you the Kindle keyword and category course for free.
And again, this course is, I absolutely love this. It's one of my favorite courses I've watched. It really breaks it down. The theory behind this stuff is solid, but when you see the examples, it just makes it resonate, and you can think of great ways to use it for your own book. And again, what Dave does here, he takes you through the step-by-step process to find them, how to become more discoverable on Amazon, how to use the best keywords and categories to get more sales to make sure you become a bestseller, and so much more that are going to increase your rankings and increase the number of books sold. So again, this is like the pro course. You go through this and you're going to see the best way to use Rocket and how to really be effective.
Yeah. So somebody asked how long the course is. It's a self-paced course. So I think when I went through the old version, I don't know if this is an updated version, but I mean, it was a couple hours worth of it's not extensive or overtime or anything like that. But it will help you use the tool so much better.
I believe there's 6 episodes. I'd have to double check that, so don't quote me. But really just go pop the popcorn. And when you're usually putting on Netflix, go watch this instead for a couple of nights, because it's really going to make a difference. Now, the other thing with Publisher Rockets as well is when we talk to people about what they love to use the word investment because Rocket pays for itself. It comes back and actually is available, or Rocket pays for itself and actually earns you more. So when you spend that $97 a Rocket, 48 book sales later, it's paying for itself and it's earning you and it's driving you up the Amazon store. And the other thing that's really important as well is it's great for books that have plateaued. If your book has run out of steam, if it's older and you don't feel like people are seeing it anymore, you can use Rocket to revive it. And that's going to help more people see it. It's going to put it in more categories and drive those keywords so that people start buying your book again and it catches that fresh breath of life. Now, remember, this is only available for limited time. So Alexa, I'm going to leave this open till Sunday, if that works.
Okay.
You're available to get that free keywords and category course. After that, it's gone. But the benefit here is you keep Rocket for life. And then you get unlimited updates. So anytime we add something new to Rocket, it comes in and that is included for free. We have world-class support. We don't use chatbots. These are real authors that answer your questions. And we have a ton of lessons, resources, and tutorials. And then the best thing about Rocket 2 is it's risk-free. If you download it and you buy it and you say, this isn't for me, which I don't think you'll do, but if you do for some reason, all you have to do is say, hey, give me my money back. As long as you do it within 30 days, we don't ask questions. We want you to be completely satisfied with our Publisher Rocket. I'm confident you won't return it because so many people love it and makes such a big difference. But if you change your mind, this is always there for that first 30 days. So Alexa, I just want to say thank you again so much for having us today. It was really exciting to take everyone through this, and we just want to open up the space for questions.
Oh my gosh, there are so many questions and we really don't have a lot of time to cover all of these. So I've been going through and asking them. Julie, you can get extra categories by emailing KDP directly. And I think we have a tutorial or some information on how to do that. So I'll have my team look that up. And if that wasn't covered there it is, it's right there. So you go into there. I thought you had covered that. You go in there and you tell them the categories you want them to add, and you can have up to 10. Do you do multiple licenses? I think I have it installed on more than one computer. I'm not sure
The
though.
license is per person. So if you have more than one computer, just let us know. We'll let you install multiple computers. It's just per person though.
Okay. Okay, so we answered that one. And listen, I'm going to say to you guys, Dave's blog is one of the most comprehensive blogs I've ever seen in my entire life. So I would encourage you, if we don't get to your question right now, go to their website and search, because everything you can possibly think is out there. Sandy, yes, this also applies to children's books. Categories and keywords are categories and keywords, no matter what. Okay,
children's books is one of the best places I've seen this applied to. I mean, if you look at children's books, there are so many things that you can see right away on the cover. So if a kid wants to read a book about a dog and it's a children's book about a dog, you want something that in your keyword. Remember, that's your type of character role. But then someone goes and looks, the parent sees the dog on the cover, it's showing up for the keyword, and then they can go purchase it. So it's really powerful for children's books.
Yes, I love that. So we're not going to go over where to put in the keywords. Where you put keywords and categories are on the back end of KDP, and that's something that you'll get to when you're ready to publish your book. And yes, you can always update and change your keywords. We got lots of questions about that. Great. Okay, let's see. Are keywords, oh, this is a great one. Are keywords only single words, or can they be phrases like Renaissance, Italy, Europe, romance?
That's a great question. And you want it, most likely it's probably going to be a phrase. There might be one times that you come up with the single words, but usually it's going to be a phrase. Don't make it too long, because remember, you're putting in what someone is likely to type in Amazon. If you make it 10 words, it's probably not going to happen, but there's a good chance it is a phrase. And when you go into Publisher Rocket and you type that in, it'll show you all the different phrases and which ones rank higher there as well. So just remember, when you use a phrase, don't make it 10 words long, but if it's 3 or 4 words, it's kind of the sweet spot of what people will type in.
I like this question from Cheryl too, because I hear this a lot. Should you, if your keywords in your metadata, should you repeat that in your keywords? For example, if your keyword was, did we lose him?
Am I still here?
Oh, you're still. I don't know why the camera.
So like, for a second.
I'd love to hear this. Whether if your keyword's already in your title or other places, should you also use it as a keyword in your keywords?
So remember, you're doing your best to convince Amazon that your book belongs to this keyword. So if you're in the metadata, if it's in your title, then yes, I would include it there as well. What's important is you want these things to be natural. So if you think about it as a reader, you're going in and you're looking for a book, and the book that you want to read just has 8 keywords smashed together in the title or something like that, or it's all in the subtitle, and you can just tell they're throwing random keywords in here, that doesn't sell well. So make sure you can make it natural. But remember, you were trying to convince Amazon that this is what your book is about. This is the type of people that it should show your book to, are the ones typing in these words. So I would recommend including it on all 3 if you can. Just make sure it doesn't feel shoehorned. And then if you're going through, for example, your description, you can put it in there too. Just make sure, again, you don't put the same word 10 times where it's really obvious. Remember, your goal is to make this natural, to make it flow and be appealing to readers, while at the same time telling Amazon, this is who you should match me with.
Awesome. Let's see. I just dropped the how to choose keywords link too, which is another great thing, but I imagine that's completely covered in the course if people are getting it through the course, right?
It goes deeper in the course. But that's a great guide to have, just to review, to look at, to understand. Because I mean, so much about this is getting creative with those keywords, and that one really helps you get there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we really don't, we're really at the end of our time here, but I would say there is one thing I think it's an important question to answer, because multiple people have asked it, and I've heard this question before, and that is for traditionally published authors or even hybrid, whose publisher controls their back end. Is there anything that they can do about this other than saying, hey, I just went and researched all of this, and these are the keywords I think you should be using?
So that's a tough one, right? There are ways. So I would talk to your publisher if you can, because if you say, hey, your publisher wants you to sell more books as well. And if you tell them these are some really strong keywords that are there, you might be able to convince them to change that on their side. But remember, like we mentioned, and this depends upon how much control you have over it, but your subtitle, your title, and your description are all areas you can put your keywords to. So if your publisher lets you influence those, you can add your keywords there. As opposed to the seven boxes, you're probably going to have to go through them to actually edit those, but you can still use the power of keywords, and you can still affect your book sales through those other areas, depending upon, again, how much control they give you there.
And Publisher Rocket is the updated version from KDP Rocket, right? That was just the new name.
That is correct. It's just the new name. And not just that, but every time we update Publisher Rocket, you get the update for free. And I know we have a really cool update coming soon. So towards the end of the year, there's an update that's coming soon with Publisher Rocket. If you own it, you get it for free. After that update, I think our price will likely change and probably increase. So if you get Rocket today for $97, you're locked in, you get the new update and everything else compared to what we might sell at the beginning of the year.
Awesome. All right, let's see. Do you have time for one more question?
Absolutely. I'm here as long as you need me. So
we'll do 2 more then. Okay, let's see. So I think this is a great question by Krista too, because a lot of people are writing in those really big categories. So if you are writing a fantasy book or a science fiction book with those massive categories, she asked, so to clarify, you don't want to use fantasy or science fiction in your keywords at all?
So you can put in combinations of it with other words potentially, but remember, you're going after things that are less competitive. And if you type in the word fantasy and there's 150,000 other competitors there, it's so hard. It's so hard to come in number 1, because remember, that's your goal, to show up as number 1 on search. And unless you're J.K. Rowling or Terry Pratchett or someone, it's gonna be very difficult to get there. So what's important to remember is if you're using these big name keywords, check it on Rocket, see how competitive it is, because chances are you'll see that it's an 80, 90 score and you're not going to show. But if you take those keywords and you add them in and put other keywords around them as well to make that phrase, and you put those in Publisher Rocket, you can see those potentially have lower competition. But your goal, again, is you don't want to be in the school of fish where there's 50,000 fish and only one of them is going to get the sale. You want to make sure that you're distinct and that you have low amount of competitors.
How do you, this is perplexing to me, because like the memoir, I think, is the hardest challenge of this one. Someone who's writing a memoir, like there's not a whole lot of other categories that you can, I mean, I don't know, but it feels like, unless you can find something that's really specific to it, like we published a memoir that was also travel in Europe. So she did really, really well in the like Eastern European travel and things like that. But what happens if you've written I don't know, I guess maybe if you've written a memoir about growing up someplace that does, I don't know.
Well, I think what you do, because we looked into memoirs not that long ago, actually, about a couple of weeks back. And the important thing you need to look at is, like you mentioned, if you can come up with a qualifier like that, like traveling in Eastern Europe or something, and that's something people search for, well, you can have that available too. Or if you have a memoir and you think about the major events in your life, I mean, remember, people look for events and situations and these keywords. If you can find something that's your memoir and you were really strong in business, let's say, or it's your memoir as a chef or whatever it is, you want to include those as well, because there are versions there that people will look for. And then on the category side, there's a lot of different categories within that memoir space too, that you can take advantage. But what I recommend again is I'd look for qualifiers that set yours apart, because if you just do memoir, like you said, it's hard. There's a lot of memoirs published and you really got to stand out. So think about the ways that you can come up with a keyword that someone might be looking for. If someone wants a mentor, for example, and I mean, I read memoirs. Usually when I do it to learn from someone. Like I read a memoir and I say, what can I learn from this person? What can I learn from their life? So I would think about sometimes, what's the lesson out of that memoir? What's the thing that people are taking away with it? And you can potentially put that in as a keyword because people might search for that.
All right. Let's see here. One more. I'm trying to look to see if I can get the biggest that will talk to the most amount of people. We just did the memoir one. Oh, I think, well, a lot of good questions. Does searching, should people search in incognito on Amazon when they're looking for keywords?
That's a great question. I do it because I know that Amazon likes to watch people, right? And you never know when they might be up to something. So I do it incognito because I want it to look like if I'm a random person. If you don't, you're probably okay, but just realize that Amazon might be turning some wrenches in the back end and doing something differently for you than they do for everyone else. So I highly recommend that, just so you get the general response that everyone else gets.
All right, good answer. And what about, I love this. This is a great question. When your book winds up, and I really want to know the answer to this question because we have a children's book that keeps showing up in the teen category and we cannot for the life of us get it out of the teen category. It's a picture book. So when Amazon puts your books in categories that it should not be in,
that's terrible.
Yes.
So the only way that we know of, and this is, I'm sure you know how it is to work with support sometimes. It's tough. But what you can do again is you go on that form, you put in the removal. If they don't do it, I mean, the only way I've had success with stuff like that is just to hound support. And I keep calling them, and it's really painful, but to get some of those things changed in Amazon, sometimes you really have to be persistent. And I really wish that would change, because as you know, sometimes there are things that you got to change. There are things that are very important on the store, and they're the only way to do it. So I would use the form. If that doesn't work, you got to keep calling their support number.
All right. Well, I guess we'll contact them again. We've contacted them like 7 times. It's so annoying sometimes.
I wish I had a better answer for you. I published book 5 in my series the other day, and Amazon contacted me and they said, how do we know you wrote this?
Yes.
And I want to say, who else would? But, it just takes a couple calls and eventually they'll change it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right, y'all. We could keep answering questions forever, but I am going to hit this one because I know we have lots of historical mystery writers in here. So Carol says, how do you advise someone writing historical mystery for search terms? When she types it in, she gets historical mystery book, historical mystery series for the time period, 18th century or location, colonial America, both get bad scores. Yeah. What do you do if your book is in a horribly scored category?
Well, there's 2 things you can do here. So one is that you just change up, continue to get creative. So I've seen before, for example, I might say historical fiction, colonial America. But if you put historical fiction in colonial America, sometimes you notice it's really different. Or historical fiction in the colonies. So start playing around with those words. Make them plural. Add in a little bit of the structuring and change how that actually appears. And usually when you do that, because the first one you search for, remember, is probably more competitive because everyone is thinking that. But if you think of the ways to change that structure around, usually you can find an area that is less competitive and sells well. And then the second thing, and this is if you haven't written your book yet, what I like to do when I'm thinking of a new book idea is I'll go through Rocket and I'll look at the keywords and categories and I'll try to identify where there's an area that is just perfect to drop a book. So if you go in, there's a lot of searches coming out for it. So a lot of people want to read it. It's an easy keyword. And then if I know I can write a book in 3 to 4 months, I'll go after that. So that's an option too if you haven't written it, but if you have written it, it's not a problem. Remember that you can still do very well with these books, but just change up the structure of your keywords and usually you'll find something that'll let you fit.
And the next presentation from Hank is going to be how to write a book in 3 to 4 months. And
It all depends upon your speed. Don't let me.
5 years later.
Yeah.
All right. Oh my gosh. This has been so incredible. I mean, I've been using this tool for like, geez, since it, I mean, basically since it was brand new. And I learned a lot today that I was not doing to use it as well. So apparently I need to go through the course again as well.
Well, the thing about Rocket is you learn something new every day. The children's book example, the other day we went in, we put children's books age 5 to 7. We wrote the word 2 in the middle, and then we did 5-7. It's ridiculous how different they are. Like every day you learn something new and you see how different these keywords, and just a little bit of psychology when you think about how someone might enter something in, and every day you find something new. That's what I love about it, is I never stop learning with it. And I, am familiar with the whole back end. I know how this thing runs, but Amazon still surprises me. There's so many things you can find in it.
Well, since you just looked at it, was that a good keyword, 5 to 7? Because we have several books in that range, and I don't think we're using that. So
It was, for me, it was the difference between putting the hyphen and the T. But it depends. Like I'd have to go back and see. I can't remember which one was better, but I do remember there was a strong difference between them. I would recommend taking a look. And then for the kids' books, I saw a lot with ages. And the other thing I saw with kids' books is the character type. Like we went in and we typed kids' books about dogs. And then we typed in kids' books about pigs because we thought maybe like Peppa Pig would drive this. Kids' books about pigs, at least in the US and the UK, was doing well. And I bet that's because of Peppa Pig over there. But the dogs one was just so much more popular. So these are examples where if you don't know what you want your character to be about yet, you can change that up in the beginning and get a better click rate. And that's not to say if you wrote a book about a pig that you won't do well. I mean, you could still do very well there. That just might not be the keyword you want to use.
Wow. Okay, that's good to know. And character type, I'm taking notes here.
It's huge for kids' books. I mean, if you think about what a kid asks their parents for, if you say, hey, what do you want your book to be about? I know as a kid, I just said trains. I want to read about trains. And that's what they look for. They want their kid to be happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that is, yes, absolutely. There is a replay. We are going to send that out. Give us 24 to 48 hours before you start emailing us and asking where it's coming. It is coming. We always send it. If you're super anxious, you can hop onto YouTube and check there at youtube.com/write publish sell. That's where it gets loaded first while we're gathering all the links and all the other things that need to go in the replay email. Hank works for Publisher Rocket. So his website is, I'm sorry, his author website. Do you have an author website, Hank? They all want to know.
I do. I usually don't share my pen name out here, but I write in superhero fiction. It's Leonard Petracci. If you want to look it up. I'm mainly more on the Amazon side. But I write in superheroes. My book is called Star Child. Don't go buy it or anything. But if you just want to take a look, it's over there. But if you want to really look at, Publisher Rocket and what it does, I recommend looking through reviews on Publisher Rocket. That's where you can really see it. I recommend going over to Kindlepreneur. You're going to learn a lot more there than you are just looking at book descriptions. You can get a lot out of looking at the book descriptions. It's important, but people have come through and they've done a lot of analytics, and do that first, and then you can go check out the other books.
Oh gosh, this has been so good. Really, Kindlepreneur, that's the first website that I ever go to when I'm looking for anything, because I always find the answer there. And it's just, I don't know how Dave puts out as much content as your team does, but it's incredible.
So exciting too. Every day you learn something new. I love it.
Absolutely. And then the other thing that we're going to have you guys come back for, or write a blog post for us or something, is Atticus, because we get asked about Atticus all the time. And so we'll have to have you back.
We'll connect there. I know that's we're not quite there yet, but I know it is something we're looking to do in the future. So let's reach out and we'll connect on the side. But I know that Atticus is really turning into something incredible. I love using it for writing. You talk about the books that come out of there. They're so beautiful. So that's something where we should absolutely talk about. We can really show that off.
That's amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. And go to their website. You can use one of the links that we have dropped. It will take you, this one is a keyword category, but it'll take you to their link. And just one more time, I will drop the link to the Publisher Rocket page. We'll also have it in the email.
And make sure again, so if you go over to Kindlepreneur and you see Publisher Rocket, go back and click on your link. Like that's the way you get the free course. So make sure they use your link to get over there.
All right, cool. So you got to have this specific link that we dropped in there. Did that do the
Or
right
that-
one? I don't know if that did the right one. Hold on. Don't use that one. Use the one that's on the slides. We'll make sure that it's put in there. I just changed it, but it's not
You can
changing.
send a follow-up with it in there as well, I think, Alexa.
Yeah.
if that would work.
All right, sounds good. Okay, everyone, I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much, Hank. This was really great. And tell Dave we said hi.
Will do.
And have a great afternoon.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Alexa. Thank you, everyone here. Best of
Thank
luck on your
you.
publishing journey, and see what you can do with keywords and categories.
All right, awesome. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.